Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. I'm Anthony Giuliano, and my guest this week is Beth McAvoy. Beth, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I understand you had the somewhat unique experience of starting a new job in the midst of a pandemic. What's that been like?
And after having a baby.
After having a baby. And actually, you started two jobs during the pandemic.
Two jobs during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that may be the most unique of all of our guests in terms of doing it twice and having a baby in the mix. How have you navigated all of that?
With a whole lot of questions and patience.
Okay.
And a lot of learning how to set up my workspace and what's best and what do I need. So
okay. Are you blessed with a dedicated workspace in your home office, or is it wherever you can find it?
I have a desk in our basement, which is the toy room.
Okay.
So there's a actual children's roller coaster behind me. That sometimes if my son is home, people get to see that happen.
Okay. All right.
But I also find myself just kind of working at my kitchen island a lot too.
Yeah.
Especially this winter, since it's been cold.
You need some light.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the roller coaster next to the desk, was that intentional? It's it's a compromise. I have to keep an eye on the kids. They'll be entertained. I'll be able to get some work done. Or was it why did I put the desk next to the roller coaster?
It was the only space.
Okay, got it.
I have this one corner of the basement. That's about it.
All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to say a sentence I've never said before in my life. Why did you put the desk next to the roller coaster?
Right.
Okay. Well, we will get to more of that, but I want to start at the beginning, whatever that is for you, and talk a little bit about your career path, because it sounds like you've spent most of your career in Fort Wayne, and this is where you grew up. But tell me, when did you start thinking about careers? What was first on your mind as a career path? Did you follow that? Did you divert from that? And why did you go in that direction? When
I first started thinking about a career, I was always kind of in business and marketing. And it was unique for my family situation. Both my parents have kind of been in social service roles.
Okay.
And so they were like, business? What? Yeah. You just want to help people. But then I ended up doing a little bit of that as well in my career path. But I I became interested in the advertising angle of things. And so that's what I went to when I went to school for business and marketing. Advertising was really what I wanted to focus on. It took about 10 plus years before I got there in jobs.
Yeah.
But that was always what I was interested in. So I went to IU in Bloomington and was in the business school there.
Okay.
Marketing.
So what was interesting to you about the advertising world? Anything you can put your finger on?
The ideas of how do people think of the ideas, which is funny because I'm not necessarily the creative person when it comes to what I've done with marketing. But that process is always interesting to me. And as I've gone through the marketing career, the kind of the approach to communicating with people and all of the components that will go into it, I just always think why did they think of that? Or how did they think of that? And then also thinking about the opportunity to speak to different audiences, represent different audiences, has really been something that I've gravitated towards.
So what did you do immediately after college? What were your first couple jobs?
My very first job was a bank teller.
Aha. And that was at Old Tower Bank,
at
correct?
Tower Bank.
Okay, so how did you get from I'm going to study advertising to I'm going to be a bank teller?
I didn't get a job.
Aha, that'll do it every time. Yes.
So I didn't in college. I worked just whatever jobs I could get to pay me, and discovered that all advertising, marketing internships were usually non-paid. So I couldn't ever do those.
Yeah.
And then I graduated school in 2003, which was a different economic crisis of Enron, all that kind of stuff. And when I was interviewing for jobs, they were going to people who had been laid off and things like that. So they had a lot more experience.
Yep.
still in entry-level positions.
Yeah.
So I needed money, and
Yeah.
so I started out as a bank teller.
Okay. And you did that for about a year, if my memory serves me well, from what I read on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
So where do you go from there?
Then I got into a marketing role.
Yep.
And I worked at Lincoln Printing.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a leadership development program for like people out of college,
Yeah.
kids out of college. And it was really awesome because it was like they were going to train me to do, sales, whatever. It was a really cool role where you got to train in every single department of the entire company.
Oh, wow.
And I worked hands-on. I even had to join the union
Really?
to work in the print shop for a while.
Okay.
And
how big of a company was that?
There's like 40 some employees.
That's pretty unique for a company that size.
Yeah.
Huh.
We were a part of a larger national corporation, though.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that training company was nationwide.
Got it.
And it was really cool then because then you got to go to conferences with like hundreds of other kids in their early 20s.
Sure.
And it was a ton of fun. So I actually worked, because we were short-staffed, I kind of worked in the bindery longer and, learned how to make 12-month desk calendars. And then I eventually, I estimated jobs. Like I did everything. And then I eventually went into sales and then sales support for the top rep.
Okay.
And I swore I would never sell a 12-month desk calendar and make somebody do that.
So what was that experience like being in sales? Was it something that you were happy to do but happy to get out of it, or?
Never had any intention of being in sales in my entire life.
Yeah.
But I did get to kind of work with the creative marketing folks. And so that was really cool. All of the things that needed produced and printed, that all of the creative marketing people, whether it's a marketing department or a company or marketing agency, you had to work with them on all of that. So that was really neat to see how that process kind of worked. And then this was like the end piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first job where, like, at the end of the day, you could say that this is what I did all day long.
Yeah.
Or like, this is what we made. And I really loved that aspect of it.
Okay.
Not just like I worked on a computer all day long, but like there was something to show for it.
So you did that for how many years?
It was a little over 6, I think. It was a long time.
Okay. And where do you go from there?
So I really didn't want to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
And interviewed all kinds of places to get out of that. And I got to hear a lot of, well, you're the print girl. Like you do printing. And so I thought I just needed kind of a clean break.
Yeah.
And I went to Northwestern Mutual. Totally clean break.
Yeah. So financial advisor.
Yes.
Okay.
Financial advisors.
All right.
And I worked at the front desk for a while and then eventually got moved up to kind of a support role for their salespeople.
Okay.
And that's when I actually took your social media class.
Aha.
'Cause
Okay.
I was helping the reps develop their own social media profiles.
Got it.
And so that was cool because it was, got into use my marketing skills a little bit. Got to learn about life insurance and all that good stuff on the side.
That would have been approximately when?
Gosh, that was probably 2011-ish.
Okay. So that's relatively long ago in social media years.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The
That
class
was-
has changed a little bit since then. Yeah.
That was when I'll never forget the lady didn't know how to say Pinterest. Like it was brand new.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
Yes.
So you do that. What do you like about it? What's challenging about it? And where do you go from there?
It was totally new and it was a break. And that was kind of the best thing for me at that point. And then I joined a committee for for SCAN at SCAN. It was a different committee for them. And then we were planning a fundraising event. And so then I kind of got into more event planning, and I had done that with young leaders of Northeast Indiana as well. So I had done kind of always the marketing stuff on the side from a creative aspect, event planning, marketing through my volunteer roles. And then that SCAN committee landed me a job with SCAN.
Yeah.
I was their fundraising event planner. So got to do that for a whole year, and you do everything from plan out all of the logistics of the event to all of the marketing of the event.
Yeah.
And so that was really a cool, crazy, wild, busy year of doing that.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I had applied for a job at Catalyst and ended up getting that at after a little bit over a year of being at Scan. And I liked what I was doing at Scan, but also was like, this is my opportunity to really
You'd always planned on working in advertising. So, okay.
So that was really cool, because then when I moved into that role, it just seemed like so many things, everything just like didn't make sense, but it still built.
Yeah.
You know,
it was all
building.
cumulative. Even if it wasn't a straight line, it was a set of stairs that got you where you're going. Yeah. So how long are you at Catalyst then?
I was only at Catalyst for like 10 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was insane. And my printing experience was really integral to all of that role. And at that point, I was the co-chair of a big event for a while, and a couple months after that event, Matt Kelly attended, and he, introduced himself to me afterwards, and he was like, "Hey, I've got a job. I think you could be interested."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I've only been here a little bit," and it was funny. I said I didn't want to be the person that like switches jobs all the time, and he was like, "Well, if you come work with me for a long time, no one will remember that you switched jobs."
There's some truth in that for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So that led me to, that role. And that was really like a really good fit of project management, and working with creative people. And it was incredible.
And you were there for 6 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So why did you decide to do something else?
Sometimes you never know why.
Yeah, sure.
This opportunity to work with NeighborLink. So I've always struggled with, the marketing I love and the nonprofit part.
Your parents' influence.
Exactly.
Runs deep.
Definitely always came back to me.
Yeah.
And we had, worked with NeighborLink a little bit at One Lucky Guitar, and I, got to know them as an organization, and they had a role that kind of developed once they heard that I was potentially interested in it, that would kind of combine a lot of my operations experience and really the community development work, which I had totally come to love through everything we did at OLG. Like I got to work on the riverfront projects, just a lot of the cool, fun things that were in the development works of Fort Wayne. And that was where I thought I was going to go with NeighborLink.
And that started in April of 2020, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So pandemic is about as serious as it can get. And you're starting a new job without being in the same building as your coworkers.
It was crazy. And when I started that, my husband was still working or not going to work because his job had everybody stay at home.
Okay.
My kid's daycare was closed. So for the first 2 weeks of this new job where I don't know anybody and I have to figure out how to completely work remotely for the first time ever, they were both home all day long.
Wow. Okay.
It was just crazy.
Yeah.
I remember Andrew dropped off a computer at my, porch and a monitor and was like, "Don't come close. Let's just say hi.
Yeah.
Here's figure it out."
Yeah.
And also it was a, operations role that didn't exist before. So I was not only not near anybody, I was making the job up as I was going and trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. And Andrew actually left NeighborLink. When did that happen? Was that later in it was later in 2020?
So he announced it in January of 2021.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And so with his, with kind of the leadership change, some of the long-term plans of what my role was going to be wasn't really sure that was going to happen.
Sure.
And the organization, is kind of doing just a little bit different of the direction that they're going from some of the extra stuff that we were potentially going to get into, the regular mission hasn't changed.
Got it.
But so that kind of led me open to, am I going to stay here forever, or should I start looking for something different?
Sure.
And my friends at OLG sent me the job for I&M. I&M was actually my client at One Lucky Guitar.
Okay.
And so my friend that was working with them after I left was like, hey, look at this job.
Yeah.
And that was, I think she sent me that job description like day 8 after having a kid. And I hadn't slept, and I was like, okay, what?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I realized, oh no, it's closing, like the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I remember kind of filling out my application and hoping that it was coherent.
Yeah.
But really glad that I knew who my supervisor was, because she was my client before.
Sure.
So I ended up, being able to talk to her and be like, this is what's going on with my life right now. And she said, well, it works out because we're kind of moving slow in the process. And I ended up being in the hospital twice after having a baby, and calling her from the emergency room like, I can't make our interview.
Wow.
Can we?
Oh, geez.
So the whole thing has been just a wild ride.
Yeah. Jeez. So you start your second new job during the pandemic at I&M. So tell it I assume most people are familiar with I&M, but for those who may not be, what is I&M and what is your role?
Yeah. So Indiana Michigan Power, part of American Electric Power, is the electric utility for a big portion of Northeast Indiana, down to Muncie, Marion, South Bend, and a little bit of Southwest Michigan. So people are thinking like, well, you don't get to pick your utility company for electricity. Why do you market?
Yeah.
So I am a utilities marketing specialist is my name, my job title. And while we don't need to market you to say, pick us, there are a lot of other communication related messages that we get out to customers.
Yep.
Some of them are things that are around regulatory messages, around, rates and different things that are happening from the Utilities Commission that we have to let clients or customers know about. Also, there's just a whole lot of like information that we can get out to people. But a huge thing that we market is energy saving. So different ways to save energy. And then you think, well, like, why would the company want you to spend less on your electric bill?
Telling people to consume less of the product you sell. Yes.
Yeah. Number one means we're good stewards of the environment.
Yep.
And also there is the electric grid, and just constantly monitoring it and making sure that we have enough enough electrical power to go around to people. Not really an issue for us, but, we hear things about rolling outages in large cities like New York and California. They're definitely telling their customers ways to save energy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So AEP is a larger organization. Geographically, where does AEP sit? Where does it live in the world?
We have power companies from Appalachia, Indiana Michigan Power, Ohio, Kentucky, Texas, Oklahoma. That we're kind of all in the midsection of the country.
All right. And does that have any impact on your work? Does it give you additional resources? Are you fairly independent at Indiana Michigan Power?
We're fairly independent. The AEP team, they have their own marketing team, and we can share resources, and we do all of the different, we're called OpCos, the different operating companies kind of approach marketing differently depending on, what their audience's needs are. And so we, when it comes to like, what does your website look like, it's pretty standard through all of the different operating companies, but tailored specifically to what our programs are, et cetera.
Got it. So aside from starting a job in a pandemic, aside from you're only 6 months in and you're still learning the job, aside from doing all this while having 2 young kids, What are some of the challenges that you're finding are unique to marketing or communicating around electric utility?
I have kind of taken over running our social media account. So that has been just a interesting experiment to see how people interact with their electric company on social media.
Yeah. So is a lot of it, I would assume, and my assumptions could be very incorrect, that most people don't think about all the things that need to happen to keep the lights on, but the minute the lights go off or the bill is too high, that's what you hear from them on social media. Is that at all accurate?
We hear a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yes. And there, fortunately, is a whole dedicated customer service team that pays attention to social media.
Okay.
So while I will make posts and things like that, I'm not necessarily the one that responds to the customer service related
Got it. So
comments.
your content creation, brand, story, all that. Okay.
Yeah. And so it's really fun. There are lots of stories to tell. I think people forget that at the end of the day, it's still people working.
Yes.
And, it's, as with any company, it's nice to kind of tell the people stories.
Sure.
And we do a really great job of that internally with our corporate communications team.
Yeah.
And so putting a little bit of a focus on it to take those internal stories and make them external.
Okay. So you've got the social media piece. What are some of the other challenges, great things that are just hard or things that are difficult that kind of keep you up at night? What are some of the things you're working on that are taking up most of your time?
Well, when I first started, I was tasked with creating a project management system for the marketing team and the corporate communications team.
Okay.
So, and we, as a utility company, we have very high standards for, the technology we use. We don't want to get hacked, all that kind of stuff. Our security is very tight. So that puts a limit on which project management systems we could use in general, which ones are susceptible to being hacked or not.
Did you have prior experience with project management being on the operations side? Was there anything you really liked but couldn't use in this role?
At OLG, I did a lot of, I was a project manager. And we, as a team, we had made the switch from classic Basecamp to Basecamp 3. And during that, we had reviewed the different options. And I am this weird mix of operations and marketing and dealing with people. And so I actually like the operation, like project management part as it comes to the systems and the details. So it's kind of a fun mix for me to get to put this together.
Sure.
And we are using Monday.com, and which is a cool tool, but it is 100% customizable.
Okay.
So I had to learn what the heck we would use it for while learning how to use it.
Sure. Yeah. And this is specifically for communication and marketing projects. This is unique to your user group. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this isn't like projects, we need to put up new utility poles. This is just telling the story, interacting with customers.
Right. Okay. And keeping track of how many external communication things do we need, internal communication things, setting up for each of our different energy efficiency programs, adding in our, whole calendar for the year of.
Got it.
In April, we're doing this. In March, we're doing this. And
got it.
Putting it all in one spot, which didn't previously exist.
So you're still learning Monday.com, and your team is learning it. That's probably taken up a ton of time, I would assume.
Yes.
And I am a AP consumer. So smart meters were a big thing recently, a big communication effort?
Yes. My supervisor is the smart meter expert. And so she's still kind of managing all of that.
Okay.
But there are so many communication pieces that go out around individuals getting a smart meter.
Yeah.
And over the past year, we have hit so many roadblocks with supply chain issues for the pieces to make smart meters. So last month in January, we had a schedule of how many smart meters we needed to install or plan to install. There were 6 left over.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
there aren't a whole lot
Wow.
extras at
Yeah.
this point. So that communication is definitely changing rapidly.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly updating people as to, it's a learning curve too of what is this thing? What are you going to do? Why do I need it? And so there's a lot of education around that.
And probably the occasionally, you're spying on my home. Yes. In
More than
2022.
occasional.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that it's more than occasional. I was hoping on your behalf that it would be outliers, but
No, it's definitely, it's definitely interesting when you have that. I actually was looking at a thread on Nextdoor, and someone started saying, my bill has done nothing but gone up ever since I got a smart meter, and you're charging more. And it was the first time really that I saw regular other customers that were like, no, it doesn't. Mine has gone down.
So the crowd policed itself a little bit.
So much.
Yeah.
And even one person chimed in that said, the rates are set by the Indiana Regulatory Commission. Like the I&M doesn't change your rate. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
And that next door user's name was Beth McAvoy.
I know. I was like, I need to go see if this guy works for us.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he knows too much.
Yeah. Well, that's at least a little bit of relief. So you have the project management software onboarding, you have smart meters. What are some other things that are taking up your time and your mental space and all those good things?
I don't do anything with the corporate communication side as far as, reaching the media and things like that, but I'm really like into learning about all of it. And because it's different, they have to, pitch stories, see what people are interested in. And I think it's just interesting to see what gets picked up. We put out a news release, and what does that look like? And it's a slow news day. They're running the energy efficiency tips again, and or they want somebody to come talk to them about this, that, and the other, and how that plays out throughout the different territories is interesting too.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of it is timing, and in this market, there's a good contingent of folks who've been consistently in the market, but there's a lot of turnover.
Right.
And once you build a relationship, that could disappear, and then you get to start over and build it again from the ground up. So let's pivot to the speed round of the show, where I ask 3 questions that are similar to what we've talked about, but a little bit different, maybe a little more concise. So in terms of career advice, you've had the opportunity to do a lot of things. You started doing something that was completely unrelated to what you studied, but learned some things there, learned along the way, and then eventually did work that's more closely aligned with your original goals. What have you learned in all that? If you were going to give someone career advice, what would be your best nugget of information you would have to share?
I would say to keep persistent. So I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew that I was going to be good at it. I many times tried to convince somebody. It took a little while, and I finally got there. And I think it got to the point where I was like, I'm glad I didn't just give up and go down a different career path. I in the moment, if looking back, I would have told myself like, shut up, no one cares. This still sucks. You're not doing what you want to do. So be persistent, and how much everything really did come into play later on. I worked at Northwestern Mutual, and then later on got to, in the marketing advertising role, have a client that was financial services. And it was like, well, hey, I actually know about this. And no one else on the team did. So, you just never know what you learn, how it's going to come back into play later on.
Yeah, and it reminds me, there's a question I get asked a lot by the college students I work with. They say, how do you get experience when every job requires experience?
Right.
And some of it is just be patient, be persistent, and build relationships. And there is no other way, really.
And for me, that was everything. Building the relationships through all of the extracurricular volunteer activities that I did. Joining Young Leaders in Northeast Indiana for me was like the best thing of getting out, meeting people that I didn't know previously, getting experience for something that if you're going to volunteer for it, and someone's going to let you do it.
For sure.
So that you can put that on your resume.
Yeah, and especially in a market this size, because everybody kind of knows everyone.
Right.
Yeah. All right, second question. Tell us something about your organization that you want people to know. That could be stating the obvious and making sure that people hear it. It could be debunking a myth. It could be a secret that not many people know about. Whatever it is you want to say about I&M or another organization you're attached to.
I think for I&M, it's just a lot of the programs that we offer that you can participate in that could potentially bring savings to your electric bill.
What's one that you think is underappreciated?
So a lot of them come with the smart meter, so you have to have that. But you can opt in to some energy saving events if they have, say it's a super hot day. We will offer you a discount if you sign up for this program to have your thermostat not be turned down to like 65.
Okay.
And there are two different versions of that program. One you can have more control over, one you don't have control over. But, obviously you get rewarded based on how that works.
Well, 65 is pretty reasonable.
Well, that's an example.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right.
And they do them, they don't do them on the weekends and those kinds of things. So those programs exist. We also have programs for rebates on electric vehicle charging units. There's just so much out there. And a lot of that has to do with the Regulatory Utilities Commission, though. Yeah. So our programs for Indiana are different from Michigan.
Sure.
So that's very interesting to learn all about that.
Sure. And I would assume that info is readily available on the website?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. We have a separate website actually for all of our energy efficiency stuff as well called electricideas.com.
Aha. Okay. So everybody's listening, go to electricideas.com and learn ways that you can help Beth do her marketing job by spending less money with her company.
There you go.
All right. Okay, last question. What is a tool, trick, tip, hack, whatever you want to call it, that you use in your work or otherwise that is super important to you and that you want people to know about?
I'd say a couple things. First, handwriting notes.
Okay. So why is that important?
Because no one does it.
Yeah.
I think, handwriting a thank you note is something.
Oh, a thank you note. Okay.
Right,
all
exactly.
Right. Yes.
To people. And I think that just can go a really long way.
Yeah. I don't know a lot of people who print out emails that say thanks and hang them on their note boards, but you tend to see a lot of handwritten notes on note boards.
It happened to me once. I actually sent somebody a GIF that they loved so much that they printed the GIF, even though obviously...
Doesn't it take the giffiness out of the GIF?
Takes the giffiness away out of it.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But, so that's kind of one thing that I am still a big fan of.
Yeah.
But then for me, the other things are different project management tools, and because I just love, figuring out where something is in the process and, someone asks a question, what are you doing? And you can say, did you check the project management tool?
Yeah.
And that's really helped our department plan for things.
Yeah. Well, and it saves a lot of email too.
Yes. Or meetings where you talk about what are you doing this week, when you can look at what somebody's doing this week, and then you can have a meeting to talk about questions. Correct.
You can debate ideas instead of catching everyone up on the stuff that's otherwise readily available. Yeah. Okay. And you have experience with multiple of them. You landed on Monday because it's customizable. Is that true?
Monday was the least, I think, hackable.
Got it. Well, there's something to be said for that.
So the most secure. Yeah.
All right. Well, great advice all the way around. So thanks for that, Beth. And thanks to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this week's episode. We'll be back next week with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.